Hi, my name's Shawn Shaler. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka The Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter fame. And this week we are discussing who'd be the best avatar. So, not somebody that already is the avatar, just who would be the best avatar. And we have each compiled our top 5 choices. I would presume there'll be some overlap. And you know what? I don't want to introduce this. Chris, you introduce this. I got to finish taking these last minute notes I'm writing down.
Yeah, so I just had a random thought to myself, like, ooh, this person would have made a great avatar. So don't think about like the context behind it. Don't think about how it would logically fit into the nations, into the avatar cycle, any of that. Just which characters do we think would have been a great avatar had they been not chosen because the avatar's not chosen? Had they had an opportunity to be the avatar, one way or the other? Don't gotta think about the logistics of it, like, oh, well, Robin comes out of Korra, then goes into this person, and fuses there. Don't gotta worry about all that. Just think who is the best, what non-avatar would have been the best avatar. So we have our 5 choices. I'll go my fifth pick, and then Sean will go his fifth pick, and then fourth pick, third pick, second pick, whatever, whatever.
I will say that I took the term best not necessarily in quality of avatar that they would have been, so much as people that I would want to see be the avatar.
That's that's fair too.
Excellent. I don't know if best is a good term for some of these people that are making this questionable list. What's going on right here?
I'm
But
now very curious to see. So just know that we went a little bit too different fast, possibly. I went with who would been like good avatars,
okay, and you know
as
what?
in like keeping balance in the world and that stuff.
Oh God. Okay. Well,
You don't know. Just keep yours how you want it.
no, I was to
Who
say
you
it's too
thought
late to
was
change it. It's not that I misinterpreted it, it's that I should have used my brain and interpreted it correctly. But it's too late. I just thought it was like, hey, who would be very interesting from a character perspective as the
that's
avatar?
fair
So
too.
not just a silly way, but like whose character would make an interesting avatar. That's how I went. Do you want to go first?
I'll
You
get
got
started.
the yeah, yeah.
I'll get started. My number
Please.
5, probably my most controversial pick of it all. Interesting enough, people thought this person was the Avatar at one point, but he turned out to be kind of a killer and things like
Oh,
that. But it is Yoon from the Kyoshi novels. Before he wasn't outed as not being an Avatar, he was on the pathway to being a great. Everyone spoke very highly of him. He was very esteemed, very achieved. He was a great fighter. He studied a lot. He was a scholar. He had diplomacy, and I don't think there would have been any type of incident that would lead him down the dark path that he went down eventually. So, with that being said, I think if he actually was Avatar, he probably would have turned out to be a pretty good one that could have handled the different nuances of the world. He would have been much different uh, than what was perceived of Avatar Korra. Like he was groomed to be the Avatar, to be a great one from early on.
he would have been like a like the prototype avatar instead of your correct avatar or your Aang, right? He would have
Yeah,
been like, this is what the avatar is supposed to be like.
yeah.
Good choice. I didn't think about the books at all, Chris, to be honest. I was just thinking a TV show. I'm glad that you did. Another thing that's going to keep our list different. My number 5 is dictator avatar Lin Beifong. I
Ooh,
thought
that's nice. Okay.
let's get an avatar who listen. Kyoshi kills people. Yang Chen probably kills people. You know who else would kill people is Lin Beifong. She she would be.
Oh man.
I struggled between one or the other. I was like her or Kuvira. I just want one or the other at the number 5 spot to
Ooh.
be this sort of dictatorial
Yeah.
extremism, what do you call it, lawful good avatar. And so one of those
Mm.
two, take your pick. I'm gonna say Lynn, but you could convince me either one would be an incredible story. I don't know how
Man, I
they're
didn't
gonna
have
grow. I
Kavir on
don't
my
know how they're
list.
gonna grow
You
past
know,
their shortcomings and be good avatars and not horrible monsters. But good writing finds a way.
that'll be really interesting. Just tough. daughter being the Avatar. So that's an interesting take. I think she would be pretty good. Um, she would be. Lynn's great. Like she's a freaking person for justice. She's a cop in Republic City. Um, and yeah, I think that's a good
That'd be the
choice.
horror story version of Avatar, the dystopian universe version of the story.
No. My number four is Boomy, the second Boomy, Aang's son, Boomy.
Oh, okay,
Um,
nice.
yeah, he's already very spiritual, enlightened, and he has this sort of, I don't want to say aloofness. Not the aloofness sounds too negative, but let's go with the flow attitude. That I don't think he gets too weighed down by things. I think he understands the everyman, and he would understand being, uh, being the Avatar because his dad was the Avatar. It'll be interesting because actually he'll be probably a much different character than what he is. Because in this, I know we said we didn't have to come up with stuff, but in this case, he'll probably die right when he's born. That's an interesting storyline. Of like your father was the Avatar, and it would make sense. He's half Water Nations, and you could be, Avatars can be half of one nation, half the other, as long as one of those is the nets in the cycle. So that would be interesting story wise. But I still think he would, your personality is part nature, part nurture. So I think he would still retain some of that Boomy charm in him. Ooh, and like a Boomy who's like crazy, Avatar who's like crazy, like King Boomy. That's interesting. Who's
Chris,
just like not trying to be like politically correct or anything like that.
it's
Not trying to
incredible.
appease people.
No, I picked Boomy. Old first Boomy is my number 4 pick, and it's incredible if you think about first of all
Ooh,
how that's the same, right? As Boomy is Boomy. I get it, right?
yeah.
But second of all, they have similar personalities, but they would be different avatars because you just talked about Boomy the second is going to be this kind of John Everyman Boomy, right?
Hmm.
That kind of avatar. Boomy the first is a king of a powerful city, right? And he's also an insane person. Both of them kind of insane, but one of them is an insane person in a position of power. And there's just something about that balance that appeals to me, and not quite to the extent of being the last airbender, but like the conflict of like trying to be this good king of this city, but also the avatar of the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my number 4 pick is Boomy the first.
No, I really like that.
Nice segue, by the way.
Being, yeah, being the king of a Amashu, how does that weigh on them? Yeah, Booby being Avatar would be like imagine him in like a final boss fight, and it's just him versus whoever the big bad is of that time. That would just be really interesting to see how he fights
I'm sure
with
he would
all four
be
elements.
distinct, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
my number 3 or your number
my,
3?
my you go
Yours.
number three. Yes.
My number 3. Okay, I said Zhong Zhong, and less about Zhong
Mm.
Zhong's character and more about the idea of having this like hermit firebender avatar, because then you get that same vibe of like we don't know where the avatar is. And it's just this old man who lives out in the woods. But then when you actually meet Zhong Zhong and you run into him, and you could see how like him bearing the burden of being the avatar, like he currently doesn't really use his powers or abilities for he I don't know how to say it. He is in the White
I feel like
Lotus, but it's not like he's using his powers or abilities for good. Like he's kind of a hermit, and that could create an interesting story at the end of his life. Like, does he come out and be a good avatar when the world is really in danger?
yeah, you know what's interesting is that he is scared, not scared. He is hesitant to firebend because of its destructive power. I
Yeah,
feel like the first time he uses the Avatar state, he does something destructive, and he is almost
terrified.
hesitant to go to that. Yeah, he's like, "This is the most. How the how the heck is a person supposed to have all this power in one
Nobody deserves
being?"
this much
I
power. If I go
yeah, exactly.
away and I live to be 100 years old, so that the next avatar is not born, and maybe people forget about it, and maybe that's the best way to
Hmm.
get rid of this thing.
Yeah, like
I
he's
don't
on.
have a ton of character to work off of, but it seemed like an
No,
interesting premise.
he no, no, I like it. He's almost like the world would be better without an avatar. Like
Kinda,
not
yeah.
one person, not let alone one nation shouldn't have this much power, let alone just one individual person.
Let
And then
alone
the
me,
story, yes.
high-ranking General Fire Nation
And
Avatar.
then the story arc, I think there is that, he comes to the sense of when, Spider-Man thing, when you have great power, you have great responsibility. And that gets him out
It
of his
takes him
ruts,
about
of
100
his
years longer than it takes Peter Parker, but it gets there, and that's the part we watch.
yeah.
That's my number
So
3.
no, I like that pick. My number three is like probably everyone. If we had a list, it would be on a lot of people's lists. And my number three is Katara. Katara is like, she's one of the best waterbending fighters. A lot of people had this fan theory of if Aang didn't run away, and if he died at whatever normal age, that Katara would have been the Avatar. And then I'm like, well, that's like a different character because she would then be the reincarnation of Aang. But it's whatever. It's a fine enough theory, I guess. It's fine enough thought. But she would be a great Avatar. Like she's not the most spiritual person, but being the Avatar, that you automatically get some spiritual awareness and powers there. Um, she is, very gifted. Again, I go back to my favorite quote. I wonder if it's one of my top quotes of the whole series. Is that, she's talking to, it's the Pain Lady episode, and Sokka's trying to convince her, like, you need to leave these people alone. Like, you're doing more harm than good. Like, and she yells at him, like, I will never, ever turn my back on people who need me. That's an Avatar quote, if there ever was one. And that quote epitomizes Katara as a character. And she never Qatar. Thing about Qatar is that she never loses hope, and that's also a very good trait to have as the Avatar.
That's truly like that's the right definition of like best Avatar. Like this Avatar who's gonna absolutely die trying to fix the world.
Yeah.
Um, like if her biggest weakness is her naivete, then she's gonna be
Mm.
like, "Fine, that's how I go out." That's
Yeah. Yeah.
hard. It's hard to top that, honestly. That being said, I don't have her on my list because I didn't approach it like a normal person. Spoiler alert.
Uh,
Great pick,
uh,
Chris. Great pick. Number 2. Do you want to go first? You
well,
want me to?
number two, I'll go. Number two, this person will also probably be on a lot of people's lists, and that is Uncle Iroh. Like, come on, it's Iroh. And then you have Iroh's probably one of the most spiritual people in the world. It'll be a really interesting thing for him to go from the Fire Nation Prince to being the Avatar. They would have found out that he was the Avatar, but they would have like really corrupted him, like to
They
be
would have
like,
tried their
"You got
damnedest. Yes.
to," yeah. And so it'll be an interesting story of him realize pretty much the story he went on of like we are not the best. Like this, he comes to this terms of like nationalism is terrible. Like we got to draw wisdom from all over. He would never go on the man. They would probably bring in. Would they kidnap people to teach him different bending? Because they would want him to know it because it makes him more powerful. They would probably, or maybe just pay
Kidnap, just
someone.
pay him a lot, right? Like, hey, what do you call it? International goodwill. Come teach our Avatar how to waterbend.
Yeah.
Maybe do that before you kill the Airbenders. Bring somebody in. You know what I mean? Do that beforehand. Just a thought.
Yeah. um, I mean, even Kyoshi learned a little bit of airbending, uh, without having an airbending teacher. Oh, that was a great moment. Oh man, look at that
Yeah,
moment in the book. Do you remember that?
that's
It
beautiful.
was like, yeah, her and Rangi was like, in my head, I was imagining a
Well,
forest
that's
during the
like her getting in
fall.
touch with her
And,
parents too, and it was
yeah.
beautiful. Um,
I really need to go back and re-listen to the audiobook. I need to do that. I've been meaning to do that for a while now. Anyway, so yeah, so Iroh would deal with just this huge pressure of being the prince of the Fire Nation and the heir to the throne, but also the Avatar. How does he get over his prejudices that is just enshrined in that's the word I'm looking for, ingrained in him. So it'll be a great arc, pretty much similar to what he has now. It'll probably end with a huge duel between him and his brother on the Day of Black Sun. Not the Day of Black Sun, on the Sozin's Comet. Yeah.
Stellar pick. My number 2, I said Janora. Just thought it'd be really cool to have a hyper
Mm,
spiritual uh, air nomad avatar, but like I'm gonna say spiritual to the extreme, like even to an extent that Aang doesn't necessarily touch, right? So, um, I don't know if I have a great direction for that. I was just like, what if the avatar was maybe a little more spirit world than physical world? No,
yeah.
that's really all. And plus, I feel like a lot of people like Janora, so if she got a chance to be in the limelight a little longer, that would be all the better.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and go with my number one, which is Janora.
Oh,
So
no
yeah, I
kidding.
think
Nice.
Janora is. I mean, before I was saying that Iroh was, I was didn't want to spoil my pick because I was saying Iroh is probably the second most spiritual person, second to Janora. Although it just depends on how you like. Iroh's
Yeah,
able
it
to
sounds
reach
like we're crafting like
light
a catchy YouTube title, like Iroh is the
it.
second best avatar.
Most spiritual person. They both have they're both spiritual in different ways. I mean, Iroh's able to reach Nirvana and become a spirit. Again, it doesn't get much more spirit than that. But Janora's able to like uh, spiritually project her body. She's able to talk to the
That would be a
spirits, and
really
that's
cool
all good.
little avatar trait to have there. Spiritually project your body all over the place. Be
Yeah,
very
yeah, no,
handy.
would be
You
right.
could solve a lot of
Um,
problems that way, Chris.
right.
Like,
She could probably check in on things like
yeah,
far
like
away.
let me jump into this room over here. Hey, don't do that. Okay. And then, back over. Everybody's like, hey, it's
Yeah,
haunted. The avatar just told us not to do that. She's not even here.
yeah. But she would be great. Janora's a great bender. She's a great leader. She is very ingenuitive with her bending, and she's very caring. But she can also be a little firm sometimes. Love
I think
Janora's
that's the
character. She'll
development
be
part for her is that she would sort of there can maybe have to overcome a little bit of naivety and develop that firmer side, not
yeah,
necessarily in the way of
yeah.
violence, just as much as like laying the law down somehow.
It'll be interesting how she would differ from we just read the Yang Chen novels. How it would be the similar and differences between those two. Granted, they grew up in much different times. And she's so she's far more studious than Yang Chen. Oh man, if she's still and if
But
she
she's not going to be
does this,
the like diplomatic tactician in the
no, no,
political way that Yang Chen is.
no, yeah, Yang Chen is over manipulating people.
Yang
So,
Chen is the Game of
uh,
Thronesian. I think you made that
yes,
comparison one, and that's very good,
yeah.
accurate comparison.
But Janora is going to be so in this case. Uh, she, I think, is going to be her her biggest issue is going to be getting over her studiousness. If she's going to, in this case, she has access to all the past lives. She's going to spend too much time talking to past lives, trying to get all the information she can out of it, and like
She's
she's
looking
going. I
for the
think that's going
right
to make
answer
her.
instead of the real one
Yes,
or whatever.
yes. So when it comes to issues or problems, she's going to be indecisive. She's going to be like Chidi from The Good Place, but it's just like I can't make a decision. Like I gotta weigh this option, this option. I gotta talk to this avatar. Oh, but it might be better to talk to this avatar. Eventually, she'll get probably to Yang Chen, and Yang Chen will be like, pretty much what she told I think Kyoshi. Like, listen, you can talk to all your past lives, and then come up with no solution. Like you have to be the avatar yourself. So I think that would be her character arc.
Be a character I would happily watch. Chris, you could probably guess, although I'm cheating. I'm gonna say my number one. You pick the one you want. You can craft a similar story, but whether it's Zuko or it's Iroh, I want the bad
Ooh,
avatar, the bad person turned good avatar, and I think you can work that with either one. Iroh's, you've got the much bigger, longer scope of being not necessarily a great human for a longer stretch of time, or Zuko's, but I want that like anti-hero turned hero avatar with two guys that ultimately at the end of their story arcs turned out to be very good people that would probably make stellar avatars. If you twist my arm to it, the first one I wrote, I didn't want both of them again for that kind of similar storyline reasons, but the first one I wrote was Zuko.
Nice.
Just because I always feel like Iroh maybe wasn't, I don't know how to say, it's like he wasn't as bad or was at least more spiritual earlier on maybe than Zuko was, or maybe that's just recency bias with Zuko being right in front of your face.
Yeah.
But also Zuko lives a really long time, so it'd be nice to have another avatar that's ancient. You know, why does Kyoshi get to be the only avatar that lives forever? So, yep, pick which one you want. I want one story arc that's like that. And that being said, Chris, my notable omissions is you could make a fun or entertaining case for like a lot of villains. But I still want my avatar to turn out to be good in terms of best, in terms of story, whatever. And I'm kind of scratching that itch with like a Zuko or an Iroh pick that is more satisfying to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Kuvira. That would be a good little villain pick. And let's see, who else would be a good villain pick?
I mean, like
Amon?
like an Amon or an Unalaq or
Yeah,
something like that. That you could be like, well, that'd be really interesting. It's like it would, but I want them to turn out to be good in the story at the end of the story.
yeah.
And still have a story. So,
Yeah. As for Zuko, I mean, I think that would be interesting because we do we see him as an airbender with the Aang's tattoo and a fever dream.
yeah,
Um, and I think it would be
in the Dragon Ball episode.
it'd probably be similar to to Arrow's story. I wonder would
It's not that it's
Azula then
irreplaceable. It's
be
just I want that what's like archetype. Is that what that's I want
yeah,
that story archetype at least once.
yeah.
And even with Lin
I,
Beifong up above, who I did pick instead of Kuvira, I don't even quite have that same
mhm.
turn. So
Yeah, probably because Azula, probably because Kuvira's right until a certain point.
right, and you would presumably
Uh,
say similar about Lin Beifong. Is like they were lawful good. They were just objective dicks about it.
yeah. Um, the thing about Zuko, like if Zuko was the Avatar and he was raised, but his dad would probably focus on him more than Azula. Uh, so that would
I
be
I
because his
tried
dad
not
would
to
want
think
him to
about that too
be.
much. I was like, what's his motivation? Then I have no idea. I try not to dwell on
Uh,
it too much.
well, I think his mom is. You know what? Story wise,
Is he
I
just
think
chasing the last Airbender because he knows there's one more out there, and they're like, we gotta get him, you know? I don't,
nah, they wouldn't care about that
okay,
because to me, they only care about the last Airbender because it was the Avatar. They were like, oh, there's
okay.
one little Airbender out there.
They
In fact, they wouldn't even know.
it wasn't because of like literal genocide. It's like, no, we can't have any more of those guys walking around.
Dang it, we're like that freaking Lysol that only gets 99.9%
That's
of. Want to be better than Lysol,
please.
Mitch.
Aang,
Um,
Aang is the 0.1%.
um,
Oh, that's
oh,
fantastic.
the story beat. I think interesting story element for Zuko is that the thing keeping him somewhat good and making him somewhat of a better avatar is his mother. I think Ozai would see that, and Ozai will try to rid him of those attachments, and he will banish her, which would kind of go down somewhat of a similar path of him being of having that hole in his that void in his life, and him trying to find a way to fill it, but not knowing how, and being filled with some type of rage.
10 out of 10 would watch. Chris, good topic. Good last minute topic. Thanks for bringing it up. Literal last minute. In the meantime,
In your defense, I've had it in my head now for like a couple weeks, I think.
I'm glad you do because basically every Thursday before we record, like an hour before, I'm like, what are we talking about? It's great. It's very professional.
I still
Chris,
need to share with you my list of topics.
we should. We're both
Yeah.
Gmail users. We both subscribe to the Googles. Why not use the Sheets? By the way, Sheets, unless you are a heavy Excel user, which I am, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides. Go use those services. They're very good. Highly recommend. Chris, let's share a Google Sheet with ideas. And you all contribute to that idea list, please, because we love talking about ideas that you suggest. Thank you all so much
Yeah,
for
any
joining.
ideas, whether it's
Yeah.
rankings or what ifs or just discussion things, anything.
Undisputed topics with Skip and Shannon, whatever you want to throw out
Undisputed.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Throw them out here, Chris. I wish if I wasn't lazy, I would absolutely overlay that instead of our current closing theme. That'd be amazing. And
Undisputed. I hate Lil Wayne's voice so bad.
He's not my favorite artist.
The thing is, sometimes they bring him on the show. Sorry, I know it's close. Sometimes they bring him on the show. Like recently they're talking about Lamar Jackson, and then so Shannon talked for like 4 minutes, and then as Shannon brings a lot of good points, and then he was talking about his contract and stuff because his contract's up. And he's like, Lil Wayne, what do you think? He's like, man, Lamar's gonna be Lamar, and he's gonna do what he's gonna have to do.
Thanks, credible source
And I
of
was
football
like,
information, Lil Wayne.
I was like, well, I can't understand anything he's saying, and also why is he here? Like, I get it. He made the song to the intro. It's actually a decent song, but
It's
so
catchy.
why is he here?
It sticks.
Anyway,
yeah, it's not my favorite moments in the show. Fortunately, I don't watch it regularly. I just watch a lot of the clips. Chris, actually, I watch a lot of the clips when I switch over to your profile to upload the videos. That's just how I get the highlights. So I don't get a ton of Lil Wayne, but every once in a while I do get it, and that's not ideal. But yeah, no, Chris, I am trying to get out of here. I'm so excited to go to bed. I'm thrilled.
Yes.
It's oddly just me, and like I might even just like leave Charlie down here and see if he doesn't notice me, so I can just have the whole bed to myself with no like wiggling or noise. If I close the door and Charlie wakes up, he'll bark. But if I sneak up without him noticing, maybe he'll stay down here a couple hours. We'll see. He looks pretty passed out. Anyway.
All right, go to bed.
Thanks, everybody. It was a lot of fun, as it always is. We'll talk to you next week. Right after we finish talking through this outro. How it goes.
Skip, my grandpappy told me you can trust a man, but you can't leave him at home with your wife. A man is only as good as his opportunities.
I wish I had papers to correct on my desk right now.